Welcome back to Mararthon Yuge. I am Admin 1, Vinny Effects, and we are on level 31 of Admin Challenge 1, called Yellow Cache. As you might remember from last time, I was having that trouble again where I got all the fail stashes and killed everything, but still couldn't get out, so I'll show you. I did as I did the last time that happened. Simply selected the solo script that Douche Tower gave me, hugemonster.lua, and I'll see what I get left. Oop. Okay, so it's just that, sorry I keep hitting the volume button, it was that same enemy, just one enemy. So with that in mind, I just saved. I'm going to go back and untoggle that script, so that way I don't get a spawn of all the monsters when I go to the next level. So I think I used that script fairly. Alright. Yep, it worked. Idiots to aim word to the juice community. Ignorance creates this on from a lot. Well, survival is Sam. I'll be huge. It is Pope mode. I've been busy nowadays, though. But I get the blood now. See you seem to Hillary victory given their blue level. Sorry, just a drink of water. Kendriod for features. Now I click. Nice to go. I'm glad I find it also been doing wrong, probably. I realized a duo/collective from chat rooms. Traceable, I'm going to delete a multi-disc album. I'm so unknown to her a lot. Well, you're not completing the average game. Connection problems. I was playing right now. Yes. Matthew, Radix. About damn time. Matthew gives up until they drag race into shit list started listening. Alright, level 32, rectangular stupid. Move. You should host the rigged for public gathering last campaign a jacket on page 2401 of Apple Talk. But rest of spirit? Shit. What a Casio. Fisher Price keyboard magic. You're missing Razor Me's games happen. Catface. Although I ditched for the spring break, but afterwards only too late. I did have 5 other than I envy for Yeti, so Yeti are helping us as FCAW performance, thankfully. So one theme I'm thinking of taking for this playthrough video to make things more interesting, since I found myself running out of things to talk about recently, is at the suggestion of a few members of the Mararthon Discord, namely Douche Tower, I could talk a bit about things included in these terminals, their possible meaning and context, what they make me think of, because some of these I don't remember the exact context of, others I do. Just a couple things come to mind. One is the mention of Razor Me. And that brings back some fond and amusing memories because he's someone whose games I have often joined and that I've ended up sneaking into because he's barred me from games for being, in his mind, too skilled for himself and the other players he has with him. As far as I know, they're newer, less experienced players, which is fine. So I guess whenever I would join, I would beat them so handily, and I don't mean to brag, it's just that I'm more experienced, but I would beat them so handily that he wanted to not include me in the games just to, I guess, keep things more even, so that, it's not like Godzilla stepping on a cupcake over and over. I can understand that, but I'm also a wise ass, so I would simply find different ways to sneak into his games. One of the ways that I would do that well, actually, the main way really is to just adopt different pseudonyms, so that, and sometimes I do that under guest accounts rather than my registered account of Adminn1, so at first at least he wouldn't recognize that it was me. Then after a while he would catch on, and then he would be wary of anyone trying to join under a name he wasn't already familiar with, because he thought it was probably just me. Especially, I suppose, if the username I chose kind of had an Adminn1-esque flair to it, because I tend to like really goofy, absurd nicknames. Anyway, sometimes I would even join as people he knew. Like, I think his brother would often be in those games, and I would sometimes join under his brother's name before his brother could join. So RazorMe would launch a game without his brother because he thought I was his brother. So, anyway, that's just been kind of a recurring joke within the community, such as it is anymore. Me joining RazorMe's games over and over again. In fact, I was told not too long ago that even though it's been at least over a year since I joined any of RazorMe's games, that he was actually still paranoid about someone being me. Deuce Tower told me that, saying something to the effect of, "Wow, man, you've really ruined it for him. He can never relax anymore because of you." Of course, he said that jokingly, I would presume, but it was still pretty funny. Another thing that caught my eye about that opening terminal was my use of the word rigged. And that brings me to something I've been thinking back on recently when it comes to Mararthon, and indeed some other things in my life, but particularly Mararthon, is that I used to be very concerned about winning, for one thing, but more specifically, I cared a lot about points and stats. Hang on while I read this. Getting fishes. Rod or red? Yeah, recombinant practice, rudiments and stuff makes complexity feel and sound very natural in an amazing way. Hell, even I would try just a sip of that once, which are marked by floating fusion projectiles. Is it possible for ALF-1 to crash from too much uplink chips? The myth mod Mararthon, the Majolan project, is especially great. Alright, well, unless there's one more game happening, I'm going to bed. Anyway, as other members of the community would reflect, I used to be a real uptight stickler about stats, specifically online gaming, well, also solo stats as recorded on lowan.org. And as I found out more and more with time, that's actually pretty silly, because stats aren't really accurately reflective of how good you are relative to other players. And a big reason for this is that your ranking for the month on lowan.org is based on the percentage of games that you win. So, a novice player could play just one game during that month against a really novice player, beat them handily, and thus be at 100% wins for the month, even if they never play anything else or take on anyone who's really skilled. Whereas a more skilled player could play several games against other skilled players, get beaten much of the time, and then be ranking lower, even though they're better than the aforementioned novice in first place. But even so, it took me a while to just give up on the idea of stats. I finally did officially on February 8th, 2017. But it became a joke. It still is kind of a recurring inside joke, one of those things that members of the community never let you live down if you have ever been embarrassing in any way. But some players, specifically Aqua, would specifically set up games. They would actually rig them and invite me into them just to give me worse stats. So they really fuck with me on the stats front. And I laugh about it now. About the time I would get bugged about it. You might recall me reading a quote from one of these terminals where I said something like, "It seems like no matter how much I killed, how fast you got more points." And if I remember correctly, that was in the context of a game that Aqua hosted. Probably a survival game that was rigged so that he got more points per hit than other players. I might be misremembering, but he would do stuff like that, sometimes in the extreme, where, for example, he made a game type called Adminn Please Don't Shoot, where every player in the game was allowed to shoot except for me. So the script would read, the username admin1, and then anytime I would try to shoot, it would automatically kill me. So, shit. So it was stuff like that that led me to just give up on the idea of stats altogether. There we go. Ah, good, and a double shield charger there too. Anyway, more broadly, beyond the concern with the stats, I used to be kind of neurotic about points and winning for some reason. There are various reasons I could cite that ultimately converge on a long-standing confidence issues that I'm getting better at, but it's kind of funny, even though I haven't played Mararthon online much in quite a while, mainly because I have other things going on, other priorities at the moment, like Yuge. I have found on the occasion when I do that, that I do much better actually when I'm not concerned with points. Not only that, but where I will actually play games without even a heads-up display or anything that would show me the points. So that way I'm just immersed in the game, the learning, the flow, what's happening in the moment. I found paradoxically by doing so that I actually play better. Sometimes I'll even be pleasantly surprised. I'll play through a game just enjoying it for what it is, and then I'll find at the end that despite how I felt it turned out, I was actually a very high-ranking player, if not the winner. So that's one of the ways in which I've grown as a marathoner and also as a person in general, is just taking more of that stance about things, rather than being neurotically attached to an outcome or some idea about what I think I'm supposed to achieve to be good enough or something. I haven't played too bad for someone who's been talking the whole time. I suppose that helps illustrate what I was just talking about, huh? Alright. Hey. There we go. Hopper, Sparkler, Steesto, Fallis Oldest, Fuckhead. I guess these must have been usernames. I guess I was joining or hosting a game and I saw someone else had joined the meet server, so I was saying their username in a question mark to see if they were there and if they wanted to join. Anyway, the funny is so it's possible. No, I luck even log in. Okay, ready? I'll instead of mods that Aleph1 makes them fine yesterday, I finally be funny. Wayland on Mars needs women too. Have you working fine? I obviously not even be better way around here. Lowan.org says it's Winslows. Windows. I am the poster. I really enjoyable. Not much of shields. And some food. Let me recently. Well, there was with this. Is it figured that the Xbox version of the thread on making things keep on there? I'm terrible, remember? I played in the gym. No, it's here. Great. Well, I'm just having stores would imagine I'll find. Alright, level 33. Attached working. Gorillas. What does blow though? Hosts a crazy gameplay wise. It said no receipt for civilization stats. Ha, yeah, I compiler am. Alright, compilers. And Duke Nukem Forever even wanted to soul except for yourself. Hey, listen, G. Looks like at first time, Aqua. Why don't think I give you said you map, but I've ever give you sometime later. Hey, you take off. Under several. Now, one thing I could probably give more mind to is the structure and ideas behind different huge parts and how they might inspire me. Since I'm starting off mapping, and for the time being it's more in the Wolfenstein 3D style, meaning one world unit squares of uniform height. I like this use of a bridge, and I would like to take some time at some point to look into how exactly to achieve that, because I know that making a bridge in Mararthon is a bit more challenging than it must be for other games, even of its time. But anyway, I like that there's a bridge with a narrow dodging that you have to do, and yet also these corners, both from above and below, that you have to watch out for wherever you are on the map, and the huge part that is. So it's one of those huge parts that has you focus in many different ways at different points, and that's a good kind of dynamic to have in any part of a map, I think. So I'll take that to heart. Alright. Yeah, but I don't want to be a person. Sosin and Caden9656 say hi. You know what would be really fucking cash? If there was a kind of literal Marathon Infinity, or some person or team of people came up with a computer algorithm to generate marathon levels, so you could just play through the game and never ever ever finish it. Wow, that quote has kind of aged badly, because I'm in the hell of trying to finish something like that. I mean, I enjoy this, but there's still the looming specter of just finishing it. Miss all the other things happening. Anyway, well, I'm done being bored to death by you pricks. I can tell just by the lack of capitalization or punctuation, and as well as the use of the word pricks, that was me at age 12 in the Marathon AIM chat server in 2005 under the name Sewer Tiger. Anyway, I shall redouble my efforts to be ridiculous, that I may inadvertently provide more golden nuggets to the altar of Yuge. Yep, well, that in itself worked, so great. The political rants are bizarre and incoherent. I think I was talking about someone, AP, from ap.johnirons.net. Not John Irons himself, but someone who Irons hosted on his site. he gave the guy's webpage a home, and the guy went under the name AP. I think it may have been something like Dade, not Dade, but DAED head AP9 or something. Anyway, let's see. So I guess my current build is obsolete, eh? So, a bit about the first couple of quotes. I don't want to be a person. I believe that was in the context of me confessing a long-held desire to be turned into a sentient AI that just sits there and generates content. I do still feel that sometimes, but I suppose, out of context anyway, that quote may have seemed bleaker than intended. I have thought sometimes it'd be nice to just be concerned with generating content like that. It would definitely include Mararthon content. Maybe it would include the capacity to do stuff within a computer system like play Mararthon games. But though I could be wrong, I believe I'd be pretty glad to even give up some of the benefits of this flesh-bound life to just exist that way. And maybe in such a case, I don't think I'd really want to be immortal. I think I'd want to be done at some point. So maybe I would set like some kind of deadline, at which point I would be deactivated or something. But this is pretty hypothetical. If such a thing could ever happen, it may not happen in my lifetime. Okay, I'm going to find something else to use. Because right now I just have shit sticks and a few packs of rockets. It's a little imbalanced for what I'm trying to deal with over there. If I recall correctly, this particular Yuge part was made by Glamdring. And you might remember, like what just happened there, bouncy walls. And I'm pretty sure I've gone through a multiplayer level like that. Definitely makes for an interesting fighting dynamic. I don't know how much that would actually be an advantage for you when you're trying to fight someone, some enemies. Not just multiplayer enemies, but solo ones like these. But I suppose it could help at some point. Anyway, regarding the second quote included in that terminal, Sosin and Caden are both former members of NEFX. You hear their keyboard playing on our soundtrack for Yuge, which you can find for free on YouTube, and which also includes a MediaFire download link, so you can hear the whole thing. Just download it for free. Again, the album is called If Anything Can Go Wrong, It Will Inherit the Earth. Anyway, though, the kind of funny thing is, I showed them Yuge, and they both liked it on many levels. I think they showed a brief tentative interest in possibly joining me in Mararthon. So, that same night that happened, I actually signed them up on lowon.org. But I don't think they ever have joined. They do have accounts, though. Actually, I think Sosin has said that he wants to quit video games forever, ever since he quit one game a few years ago that he was pretty addicted to called Tag Pro. I've never played Tag Pro, but I know it's an online game, and based on what I've seen of it on YouTube, it looks like it would be pretty good and something you could kind of get hooked on. Whoa. Shit. Fell back way far. Alright, one more to go. And save. Now what's interesting to me about this huge part is the way that you have to keep your balance, and if you're new to the huge part, then you don't notice per se that both ends of the room, both sides, have pits. You can walk across the middle, but you'll sink on either side right there. And of course, if you're playing an extermination mission like I am now, an admin challenge, then you'd have to go down and fight them with either your SMG, or if you don't have that, your shit sticks. Or just let them come back to you at the end. Where to next? Okay, I see the next door. Another instance of a bridge. I can snipe it. Oh, looks like it fell down there. What the hell? Oh. I was wondering why stuff just popped out of nowhere. I didn't intend to select the last fail stash that quickly. But I should be alright from here. This is another example of multi-perspective combat. I love the way it opens, just seeing a tower from across as soon as you enter. And then there being the issue of if any of those enemies fall down here, then you have to come down to engage them along with anyone else who might be down here. So you have to be careful how you prioritize combat. Not to mention that, of course, there are the floating enemies that can rise up in the meantime, like the drones we saw. Oh wow, I didn't expect that to happen. Oh, I never knew that. That's another 3-time shield capsule I never knew existed in this huge part this whole time. That would have spared me a lot of difficulty, but such is the price of rushing gameplay when you're trying to get stuff done. Alright. Featherweight. Does he say? Losers. I forgot about the fussy, and even redder and now is the moms, since moms pronounce it anyway. So Windbreaker I waited for saving it from. Look, this is the best album with anyone else. So someone is simply the MML or whatever. Like that went over at Windbreaker, the maps had it. Did you one big polygon yet? Or should play Doom on the scroll button, take it with freezers full of shields when we converted it down in 1996 no-access games. And I envy you. Catface. I tried this month. Well, Blade Zero was a command I get. The guy on drums and people around his own idea. Last one more. Give up. I keep on the foot. Alright, level 34, fresh chip. One moment, I'll be right back. I'm going to get some water. Okay, I'm Biek now. Oh yeah, I should read the terminal too. Well, I'll deal with these douchebags first. Whoa. I like the use of pillars here. And for that matter, the wall on the other floor. Alright, there we go. Now, Windbreaker's map, you get an exaggerated parody. I guess possessed drone. Alright, possessed drones. That's something like a Bill Burr joke is survival. You had with Mararthon via Sheep Shaper is survival. Boise Fair. Mararthon Capital Fair. Catface. Pfft. I can see my vehicle tomorrow. I'm about on W. I probably meant to type now. I wanted to leave a couple games. Ha, 2.5D, really? I was cut the thing as a coma. So this is some inspiration here. Also in the fact that the blocks don't align exactly, so it's like there's a corresponding wall or block, or I guess large turret for the empty space over here. Not exactly per se, but it looks like it could fit between these two in a way. And there's that same size opening down here. So there's a unique sense of alignment, I think, with this huge part. The use of a pool here is also interesting. I wonder if there's particular purpose for it, or if it's just part of the aesthetics. But it does seem like the sort of thing that, depending on your movement, could possibly hurt momentum or something. Anyway, I thought I would take this time actually to talk a bit about an idea I have. As you may already know, I completed my first ever scenario, or at least initial two levels for it. It's like a demo. The scenario Mararthon Shader Void. And as you also know, probably, Shader Void is kind of meant as an experiment with, I guess, a set of boundaries for designing maps that's based very much in efficiency at the risk of properly, conventionally appealing aesthetics. And as you also know, for that matter, it is once again structured in the Wolfenstein 3D format. But I've been thinking of making something like a sequel for it, but not exactly. I would probably call it not Shader Void 2, at least not per se. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I've been thinking of calling it Shader Void Layer 2, since I'm not really precious about Shader Void being experienced in any kind of chronological order or an order of release. People can do that if they want, just like with a lot of stuff that I do, but I'm more into the idea of it being experienced spatially and subjectively. So in that way, Shader Void 2 wouldn't really be a sequel. It would just be a slight expansion of the structural boundaries of my, I guess, design formula. So what I'm driving at here is that Shader Void 2 would be the exact same as Shader Void 1. Layer 2, that is. Except that there would be height variation. So it would still be grays. It would still be blocks of one-world units. But there would be stairs, there would be platforms, there would be multiple levels. And that would be a good chance to expand on some of the ideas I've got from some of these Yuge parts. Even if, again, it would still be in one world unit square block format. And then I was thinking there could be Shader Void level 3, which is the same as level 2, except I don't rely on blocks. I actually structure maps the way that you would expect Mararthon maps to be structured. And I'm sure that would be of great delight to some people who are, I think, frustrated. Well, mainly Deuce Tower, because he's been the most vocal in objecting to my design choices. But I think people in general would be kind of glad to see me finally map like a normal person in Mararthon. Still though, although I can understand people's objections or just general complaints about Shader Void and the way that I have mapped so far for Mararthon, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that some people would enjoy it. Firstly, because some people already have expressed enjoyment with Shader Void and some other stuff I've done, but for that matter, not only have people enjoyed Wolfenstein 3D, despite it being structured in much the same way, and indeed I think that there can be a lot of creativity and a potential to be explored within those bounds, but also just within Mararthon itself, people have enjoyed many different creations for Mararthon and the ALF1 engine that have at least one of the aspects that Shader Void has. People have enjoyed the structurally flat stuff like Pathways into Darkness for one thing, and for that matter, the ALF1 adaptation for it by Deuce Tower, mainly as Worken Cockinter or Rackencactor or whatever. People have enjoyed that. People have enjoyed visually minimalist scenarios like Susanna, which isn't even a gameplay scenario actually, it's really just a artistic scenario that uses the Mararthon engine, and that's fine. I've played through it once, I think it's a good one. People have enjoyed that despite its minimalist nature, more so than Shader Void, because Shader Void is just aesthetically minimalist with respect to textures. I'll get back to this in a bit. I'm going to read this terminal. I hope to see you some other time. No, I burned Aqua. My clock on my computer says 4, but that's because I'm too much of a lazy hoser to set the clock to daylight savings time, and it doesn't do it itself. Come down to Boise, Idaho, USA, and join in the effects. Still looking for work in that field. Well, silence can seem like complicity. In any case, I figured an explanation was due. I wonder what the context of that was. Anyway, Call of Doom tea? Don't Mararthon thong thong, haha. So anyway, back to what I was saying. People have enjoyed structurally flat stuff like Pathways into Darkness, aesthetically minimal stuff like Susanna, which is also minimal in the gameplay department, really. People have enjoyed human versus human scenarios from Mararthon, like Mararthon Squadron. People have enjoyed even plotless stuff from Mararthon, like, well, countless vanilla scenarios and maps people have released over the years, and the map pack Kill Them All, which is supposed to be plotless. So I don't really think it's a bridge too far to have a scenario that combines all those things. And it wasn't even that I specifically wanted to combine them, it's just it technically has all those elements, and if people have enjoyed those elements in different scenarios for Mararthon or ALF1, then I think they can enjoy this. But again, people have already shown appreciation for Shader Void and my other maps, so there's no issue anyway. Rest assured though, I do intend to expand my structural parameters. I think that even after I create more layers, shall we say, for Shader Void, you know, Shader Void layer 2, Shader Void layer 3, or what have you, I would still be interested in creating levels for Shader Void layer 1, I suppose, even though it's not called layer 1, but Shader Void, the Labyrinths of Growth. I can see myself still wanting to make levels that way. Sometimes, and this is probably a really audacious confession to make for me, but sometimes I wonder if I'll just end up making stuff for Mac Wolf 3D instead. If I would just become a Mac Wolf 3D guy. I'm not trying to be absolute about it like that. It means being into one means that you can't be into anything else. But I do have a weird all hands on deck sensibility, and it just seems like it wouldn't be out of the question for me to end up that way. We'll see though. Certainly won't happen before I'm done with the Yuge playthrough, if I ever finish it. So anyway, yes, I'm interested in creating multiple structural layers for Shader Void, specifically the Shader Void design concept, and all this is assuming I don't eventually find a way to get Douche Tower's SuperPave plugin working through a Linux VirtualBox, since so far as I know that's the only way to really get it working. If I can do that, then I might just abandon Shader Void. But then again, there is a kind of eerie aesthetic to it that I might not want to abandon it entirely. But my primary focus at that point probably would be on a SuperPave based scenario rather than a gray paved one. Alright, now. Uh-oh. It's happened again, damn it. Even though I got all the fail stashes and killed everyone. I suppose I didn't technically kill everyone, but something's keeping the last monster from teleporting to where I'm at so that I can really finish the level. I suppose if nothing else, I can just use the huge monster script again. It's just bothersome to have to rely on that. I suppose I don't have to do that too often. Alright. I'm going to save and then launch that plugin, or script rather. Alright, I've saved. Toggle, load. Hello? What the hell? It's not even that? What am I going to do then? We'll see if it changes if I load from here. Ah, here we go. Alright, so my guess is that in the last place I loaded from, maybe the script was still a bit faulty, so it teleported the monsters but inside a wall, so I couldn't see or hear or access them. Anyway, actually, I should save again and then reload from the save before leaving, so I don't spawn all the monsters to spawn point of the next level. Alright, now for real, we can get out of here. Alright. Dumps, ha, you're supposed to become a spree, so I've ever really only 4. Catface. I really raw end with people here unless there's the fold. Ha, yes, but no. Somebody's got it. He probably friggin' horrid. Oh wait, I just a police interrogation or I am on a 10-minute duality. The file exists crap when I deleted it, but I quite like Wolf 3D style. But I read about Aleph 1 isn't. Okay, but without trouble. And how high above Asjat now at higher percentage? I think is also has never will. No, Agiosity's guest book, haha. What's your opinion, man? Good. Yes, I haven't mustered the objects in Dover. Until then, join although I give the name of Halo and... Alright. So, level 35, orderly rub. Wow, it's not a lot of ammo. Weird. Remaining the 4 got defender, alright, defenders, and levels. I pass over again, while that's mildly enjoyable maps work that more efficient to rate. Oh, did Graves come with him? Admin 1 of silly work as good news, though. I do 30 levels, the Bill Burr joke about. Even if you map Aleph 1, we'll see you want. I'm not to be rigged in many of stupid its. Oh, well, there's way more ammo here. Interesting. Oops. I think I'd rather snipe with the fusion pistol than the SMG. It's a bit more exact. I'm probably less likely to waste any ammo. Alright, nice. So that's one interesting thing about this use part where, sorry, where not only are there the hidden pits, unless I suppose you have graphics set so that you can see through the water. But you also have to kind of dodge from projectiles at probably multiple levels without falling into the pit, because once you fall down here, then it's harder to avoid getting hit when you come back up. And for that matter, there's a dynamic when there are, I guess, sentry enemies that are likely to stay on top of the ledge, and you have enemies who are charging you from down here. So that involves a lot of multitasking, coordination, caution, etc. So many things just involved in a little hallway like this. So that's inspiring. It'll be inspiring for Shader Void Layer 2. I'm thinking of what I might call Layer 2, because I called Layer 1, or just straight up Shader Void, I called it the Labyrinths of Growth. What would I call Shader Void Layer 2, I wonder? I could just cut straight to the chase and call it the expansion or something along those lines. The new boundaries. But I want something that would both technically convey the expanded structural boundaries while also having the conceptual heaviness of the Labyrinths of Growth. I think I'll figure something out, but it will take some contemplation and brainstorming. Alright, now to read the terminal. Some other masterpieces include 2x4, Shoot Me Again, and The View. Kind of. On yet a different lab computer. So anyway, would 6 or 7 p.m. work one of these days? The only problem with it is that since I arrived, there's some noob named Neoptolemus started sending spam mail to me. That worked? Chase. Good shooting Christ, 8 other people and not one wants to play with me. This place has gotten fat on its throne. That's a good quote. Yeah, it's an interesting, sort of unfortunate thing about the meat server sometimes, is that I don't want to fault people for wanting to hang out, but you know, you would think that with so many people in the meat server for such a good game that you can scarcely get enough attendance for it these days anyway, that he would want to play a game and not just stick around in the meat server. Or I suppose now the hanging out mostly happens in the Discord, for better or worse. But I say that as a Mararthon fanatic who has a hard time getting bored of playing. Now this is a common challenge you might remember from my past experiences of this huge part. I can kind of use my radar to tell where an enemy is. I just killed one there, so that helped. But having to start from this disadvantage and killing the enemies from a lower position and also underwater, you know, at least if you're low enough they can't get you with their projectiles, but you still have to get up, and if you don't have an SMG then you're really at a disadvantage. Well, it's amazing that I didn't get hit by the trooper at all there. So anyway, with that huge part that I was in earlier, that I was just talking about, you kind of have to determine based on many factors, namely the weapons you have, the enemies you're facing, you know, whether or not to go down into the water, or to try and jump around and land on the ledge without landing into the water. Because you might be able to manage it if you're dealing with just something like fighters or maybe hunters or something like that. But if you're dealing with troopers, they can get rid of you pretty quickly with the machine gun fire. Simulacrums can blow you up, etc. And if you're better off staying underwater there, but don't have an SMG, then you have to find just the right kind of angle and distance from which to pick them off. And you have to be kind of patient, because you can pull off getting rid of enemies that way, but you have to take it slow. And it can be easy to get so lost in the gameplay that you kind of lose patience and just want to run in and kill. Shit. What's interesting about that Yuge part that we just teleported out of was that, you know, there can be a lot of action going down on the ground floor, assuming you don't also have floating enemies firing at you from above, or maybe non-floating enemies that are standing on ledges and maybe like troopers firing grenades at you. But there's also the fact that the structure on the ground floor is varied. There's the big open area, and then there's that little curved path which you can kind of run into in order to avoid the enemies in the wide open area with all the different vantage points they have to fire at you. But then you run the risk of running into, say, the simulacrums, which you saw I dealt with as exploded bobs that, well, based on the vacuum bobs. So you have to kind of be careful. There's a certain equilibrium between hurrying up and being patient and careful that you have to get with this game sometimes if you want to survive. You know, there are all these little nuances to playing Mararthon, and indeed a lot of action games that I think are sadly overlooked. There's already a lot of stigma about video games in general still being, in the minds of some people, brain rotting, which is funny because those are the people I've noticed who rarely, if ever, actually play them. But I've noticed even among gamers who don't believe that, there's still kind of a stigma around action games being inherently stupid. And I strongly disagree with that. I can certainly say that if you were to try to make it through this game, or really just about any Mararthon game, by adhering to the stereotype about action games, which is just all reflexes, all button mashing, you're going to die really quickly. You have to think on your feet. You have to balance a lot of things in real time. There's a lot to it. And that's assuming you aren't also creating levels for it, which introduces a whole new perspective that you have to think about. Having pits like this is interesting because you really have to account for vertical aiming more when you're firing, when you're dodging, when you're moving around. And that actually kind of makes it harder to avoid getting hit. At least in some ways. In some ways, being on a higher ledge can be an advantage. But at the same time, I think with Mararthon being designed the way it is, and you only being able to move so fluidly or look down so much, that makes it challenging. So I really do appreciate when I find some part of a map that takes very clear, nuanced advantage of the Mararthon engine to create really unique challenges. When you play to the strengths and weaknesses of the game's engine to create compelling design, then you're really operating on a different plane. A plane that I've yet to reach, but feel confident I can reach at some point. Or rather, it's more of a process, I suppose. See, this is still really interesting to me. That illusion there. I still don't know if there's some way to reach that capsule, or if it was programmed in there as an illusion to fuck with the player. Because I've never been able to open anything here. Maybe it is somehow built into the use part and there's just some convoluted process to get to it, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. See if there's anyone down here. Yep. Worth it anyway because of the supplies. Whoops. Since I brought up ideas for the Shader Void series, at least what I would hope would become a series, and also I've read parts and terminals that mention Doom, I thought I'd mention that Shader Void Layer 2 would undoubtedly have, funnily enough, Doom 2 influence in the level design. I mention that because, and it's mostly retrospective because I don't really play Doom these days. I like it and respect it, but it's more something that I look back on. But, well, I'll finish that thought after I read this. No, but it's mean to reveal. January 10. Yes, yep, there's a life without leaving this. I'll be plenty of d'others distraction. others, but I mentioned it have long as of Halo games the MML is default. Last one at work, I programmed this anyway. Okay, yeah, what's with it? And hell, she was confused. What all suck, nitrous? I was talking in the objects and gave up. I don't want to read about Mararthon, aka the only ever came back for playing Doom community though. Some people and Camphor channel and Flechette work for a moment. Okay, I'll be any games because of survival, but the fail stash really have no thanks. Give an idiot who were good kind, but... Alright, level 36, Growling Clock. Back to what I was saying, I know this is also kind of a divisive viewpoint, but... Well, not to read this. Why's a freak? I saw that my games in May. Firstly pissed at some other things going to him, Galvanator. There aren't you? Really though, he... Yeti... We're out by Yetis. Can't run through the copy-paste plugin installed. I didn't even Duke Nukem Forever. I play that. Shall I read Unlimited when that things are mostly lost? Okay, I'm running my games. I figured since. Okay, really back to what I was saying now. I know that Doom 2's design is more controversial. It's more irreverent and abstract in a way than Doom 1's design is. A lot of people prefer Doom 1, at least in terms of level design, even if Doom 2 does expand on the weapons and enemies, which I also think is good. But I actually think that Doom 2 is better than 1. I actually like its design better than Doom 1. I actually like Sandy Peterson's maps. I've always liked them better. I just find them more exciting, and I like the fact that they just kind of gave up on realism or setting per se and just focused on making really wild things. Sandy Peterson had these very free-flowing but structurally mindful and conceptual kind of sandbox maps and big city maps. I would love to explore that for Shader Void later too. Did I already kill? Oh no, there it is. Where the fuck did it go? Man, that defender is really annoying. It seemingly disappeared. Maybe I did kill it, I don't know. This is a nice design though, dealing with the enemies up on that ledge, but also having some that can kind of come at you from around the corner where you don't see them per se. Although I suppose you could see them on the radar of it. Even then, not necessarily before they could quickly rush out. You know, things could possibly happen faster than you would be able to account for them, especially if you're new to that huge part, which obviously at this point I'm not. Someone down here? Yep. Ah, hell with it. I'll deal with it at the end. When is he not, since there are so many spawning? School wars? Odd. Yeah, but I don't want to be a person. Ah, forget it. Catface. Yes, you're bleeding together. Aqua, what about a script that makes the start new game button take you to a visual scroll interface? Like if you did the level skip cheat but with picture. That would be cool. I don't know if it's doable though. By the way, I am also interested in creating Shader Void net maps. I've even briefly considered the idea, which I may not follow up with, but of making a Shader Void arena game. And that would actually stick with Radburn's script entirely, the Project Conflict script, or physics pack, whatever. Since I'll go and recharge. And I'll save while I'm at it. In a way, fun fact, the context of that "you're bleeding together" line was that I had agreed to a final game for the night with some people I've been playing games with and constantly beating, so I was making a joke about the song "The Final Countdown" by Europe. Before that quoted line, I was saying, "It's the final pound down," as in like final beating for them. And "you're bleeding together" meant that I was going to beat them all in the game again, which I'm sure I did. I'm far from the best player, but every now and then I like to tease and act all cocky about my playing skills when it's really just that I've been beating people who are very new to the game, and I'm just being funny. Hopefully they know it. Where'd that? Oh, there it is. Anything of note up here? That helps a little bit. Alright, time to deal with that defender first. It's definitely the biggest threat right now, and it's vulnerable enough that I can afford to deal with it first. This huge part has the kind of double-edged sword of affording you a shield from enemies with these walls, but also leaving you open to surprise when you round the corner of them. And in any case, you still have to kind of keep running around to deal with a lot of the combat in here. Not to mention what it can be like when you experience it for the first time, the way it unfolds. When the walls come down and the walls over here come down after a little while. So you have to pace how you deal with the Yuge part to not just get swamped by enemies. Anyway, though, just thinking about these Yuge parts and everything is pretty inspiring for making maps. Even just for Shader Void later 1 in some cases. So let's bring the compiler up here. Yep, just compilers. Slave driver for her a question. Yeah, I quite like Aleph 1, but this series even exists. Mararthon Infinity is survival, so shitty they're pretty good. It takes a sudden jerk since you mentioned in chat rooms around 2008. On Myth, I am some Finnegan's Wake. Huge, nothing for sure to last pack. Catface. Okay, hail. I've only one. I love that. Acme Station that talks on there, our bizarre compilation album title is even suggested someone else. Why did End the Residence? And it doesn't feel silly little better question ever do stand-up comedy on a trainee thereof. It froze for hosting. Thanks. Spooky or already think within the crowning moments or otherwise I'd finish the bouncy walls. Alright, level 37, lopsided final. Goofy teenagers in there, question mark. Unfortunately I host I'd show up again. Or you get thresholds of them out on the time he weren't cyborged there. Alright, we're assisted by cyborgs. Windbreaker, you stole that at first and interesting. As much worse of trouble of that bad though. Hail, Blade Zero. I realized today too. It'd be said so hard. It's so stupid. It's the sketchiest part where. This is another good example of multiple perspective, multiple movement combat. Maybe multiple movement isn't the exact right word, but where you deal with sentry, more stationary sniping enemies and then ground level ones. And you have to prioritize depending on the enemies and the weapons, when to move where and why. You know, how much time do you spend sniping before you decide to run onto one of the lower ledges? In the meantime, you have to watch out for projectiles from multiple sources, multiple positions, and then there's the issue of going up and down the stairs because stopping or being stopped somewhere along the stairs interferes with the momentum, and you kind of lose control of movement when you're falling from the stairs, as I was just doing a bit earlier. See, if that projectile by the compiler had hit me, it would have knocked me off into the lava. Jeez, there's a lot going on. Oh, shit. She is launching me into the air and I can't move. Alright, I'm just going to deal with the enemies here first and then go back. Because trying to deal with them all in the same spot just didn't work. Yeah, the compiler bolts are kind of the worst thing when it comes to, well, one of the worst types when it comes to losing control when you get hit by them. You just get launched into the air and you're just totally at the mercy of what happens. You can't move side to side or anything. There we go. I'm going to go back and save, and I'll be done with this particular huge part forever. At least within this level, but with that setting of enemies. This level seems to be a bit lower gravity in general. Shit. It's just too much to dodge right there. There we go. Now that's more manageable. I think it's partly because I'm feeling tired right now. I've been having just lots of troubles with catching enough rest lately because of so much that's happening. But seems lately for this level, instead of being able to finish one huge part and clear it out entirely before moving on to the next one, I keep having to kind of put it off, move to the next one. Hopefully get enough to where I can finish that off and then go back. No points, annoying. Okay, my next one will be my last for the night. Go back to flushing toilets in the wrong direction, you fucking rotter. Because all the music gets programmed as meaty. Whoa, 5 out of 6 meat server regulars. I'm going to sing the Mr. Tapeworm song now. Yeah, but I don't want to be a person. Whichever you use to open doors. Anyway, me starting to feel more tired is also part of the reason why I'm starting to talk less. Let's see, how much time do I have left? Time this for 2 hours, so I have 43 minutes left right now. Alright, I'm gonna deal with this really quickly. I'm going to pick up where I died last time. The way this huge part is structured is interesting, especially it can be in relation to the huge part you come out of with it, because sometimes you might want to rush to the center, grab some good supplies that can act as a bait, but then you'll get flanked on both sides by all sorts of enemies. And of course there's the issue of stairs and how that might affect your gravity. This is just interesting as a potential contrast within the level, because it's just one of those bigger open areas. I think the very concept of huge parts can get you thinking more about the significance that parts can have in context. Since the requirement for mapping for huge is to fit within these smaller templates of design. You know, huge rooms, small hallways, ammo closets, etc. It can maybe help you be less specifically precious about just parts by themselves outside of context. The hell? Oh yeah, this happens sometimes. Hang on. Okay, got out of it. I'm tired, I just want to use the rocket. This is interesting in the way that it has you deal with enemies in a funneled fashion, where you have to be careful about going through these narrow corridors. Alright, done. This again. Oh, here we go. Apple, you think Squadron came out. It says it shows up. Usually it's Stupid. I think you're fired. You're a step further. I'm going to it. While working or 4 bars existed. I play on lab computers right there, though. That's still at level 17 now. Aqua? I can't. Mostly Mararthon related. Yeah, but it'll even got sick of one some. Okay, I'll link for kills. So you died unless there's no to plan on the reasons it's stupid. I call it written fiction, actually. No. Yeah, specialization is a site has some homework. In fact, I'm longing for ALF1 coding. Well, in Wayland, I imagine. On the folder, it was the average game. Catface. Listening. Also, I'm sorry for the connection. So, level 38 Great Fall. Must adjustable the reflect something of platforms in HD 720p, but they are at first episode over again, although you hosted it. Catface. The admin ranting about Yuge after a number of gems and as efficiently. Being able to simply avoid. Every time too. I play Mararthon. ATHF aka Hunter. Source, this is by Hunters. Say GG makes it so much any other about. So this is interesting, the way that it makes you kind of circulate around a lava pool. You know, anything that has you circulate around in a less linear fashion than you might normally in the use part this open definitely requires you to be more mindful about when to fire what where. Oh, I thought that would just land in the lava. Oh, give me a fucking break. Well, that worked at least. Anyway, I like the big open area surrounded by narrower hallways. They're still kind of connected to it. Alright. Whoops. I'll try again. Anyway, sorry, I'm going to take a nap after this. I'm feeling pretty tired. I have noticed whenever I go into this huge part that I do kind of have to circle around while going up and down and kind of entering out a clip, or at least a few shots at an enemy on a ledge while doing so, and yet still dealing with enemies on the ground. And that's assuming, of course, that I don't have a floater that rises up to meet me. Oops. Of course, having a path where you have to deal with multiple vantage points of enemy fire and also not falling down into lava and or more trouble. That's an interesting concept for a use part. fact that you have kind of broken up perspective on that from the beginning of the Yuge part. It's pretty neat. These ledges you can get back on to get back down to your lower level. Very artful. At this point, I don't think a lot of people, particularly Trump's supporters, care much about the how or even the actually has / will. Some other masterpieces include 2x4, Shoot Me Again, and The View. On the other hand, by the way, GG stands for Gay Gator. Other than more old lady smut onto your smegma. Talk about my mom's ass? You do that already. Mediocre. Give me a link to Mararthon Rod. Alright, less than a half hour left and then I can nap for a little bit. I'll have to deal with that later. Alright, dealt with. Shit. Oh, another one here. Great. Perfect. The hunters definitely helped there. Alright, one more. First to save. Alright. Survival, oh my god, and constant volley of Halo games and gave up overnight. No undoing this. Anyway, this rate had a while, partly because I waited for years. Bit.ly link. Aquanator the nuke gun in 10-minute duality on 1. Strike while out again. I'll try it to their dumps. Currently it's Fiat CM. Yes, douche tower. I'm done that. This should make one wasn't her, but they should raise my service as being a new Plymouth in the level. Have a lardass. That'd probably be smaller and Caden with that. Seems like the innumerable bonus levels in new game discussion thread. If everyone I will comment people there be a second. You can't wait for free heal is pretty rough. Yeah. Alright, level 39, Motionless Steel. Having to get anywhere in Terminal must have been accused of misery, but it's funny it's called ourselves some defenders thing I added a mediocre player picks up. Funny. Lol, like the admin just edited your post on the brain. Does she really interesting for half my Saturday? I'm going on, getting interesting because he made that might also turns matches into this. So it's interesting in that it's kind of like multiple parts rolled into one. The multiple levels that are separated from each other. Different areas separated by this convoluted water path. Like I don't normally come up here, but for the sake of extermination and possible supply collecting, I will. Doesn't look like I can get to that though. I at least killed one enemy here though. It's kind of interesting because there's so much of these underwater paths, but you never really face any enemies there. Well, I suppose you could if you... Uh-oh. Okay. I suppose you could if you decided to run away from some enemies and they decided to pursue you underwater, but that hasn't really happened with me. That's the huge part that requires patience and restraint, where you shouldn't just run in, unless of course you're basically rushing through, like I did past levels before I had to deal with extermination levels. Pistols, and in this case used pistols, are pretty good for those weak floating enemies like that. This is another separated multi-level use part here. Oops, I didn't realize that I just had one use part, or sorry, one fill stash to get here. But it's interesting because the above level kind of has you pursue the center and this has you avoid it. But they're both wide open areas, so it explores two sides of that dynamic. Alright, achievable. Lek. Anyone else? If you're in Idaho. Wait, this nonsense reminds me miserable. This is pretty cool, he won't let you in. So Wayland is cool. I'd played Halathon, Cameron. Yep, yeah, I could. / twice. And when will be made it? I'll get better. I quite appropriate length. I saw that. They'll taste like one's called New Year's End. What's the nuke the podcast? When asked what a shitty review on Mars needs women to, it should think the hatred community. Catface. That's why I'm like, good luck with low-level anguish and went over 20 years to harm then ask about at some odds and wide. You actually also max lines around amidst growing trend of conservatives seems pretty well. Alright, I'm gonna take a drink of water here. Alright. Level 40, well-lit challenge. Flat? Earth is nice. Funny. Whoa, that got sick of Tiny Town. What are you, Yokotike and steadier in school? That's how our Wild Spectator match with Pence. Yeah, I've used haha. The plot to be interesting. That seems better with people. That sounds like Wolf 3D style. Cyborg, but you wanted to dodge. Yeah, but this night on. Speaking of new. Alright. This is an interesting use part, and not that I'm complaining, but theoretically they would take more advantage of spawn points so that you would have multiple fighters from different levels and sides to deal with. But they just kind of take it one part of it at a time, like right here. Whoops. This is neat though, having these little blocks to dodge on our way to the elevator. That's definitely something I would do. I should probably go back and save. Whoa, whoops. This might be a good spot to come back to after I alert them by coming across this area. I'll save first though. Let's go to knock the hunters in the lava. I'm going to recharge. Whoops. Well, I guess that helps. I'm really not really liking those cyborgs right now because they keep getting in the way. I'm going to save again. It's funny, it keeps turning him back on and off. Huh. There's a bug that rocket's not reaching the hunter. Dead. Finally done with this hideous part of the level. Jeez. Felt like I've done so much and I just got the first fail stash. Mararthon 52 pickup. Surprisingly no spike in clown sightings though. You didn't need me. Am I really the only one hardcore enough to go all night right after a blowout? You're bleeding together. Hang on. Smile. Grin face. Okay, but I still wish my face and mom committed treason. I like how as you come around this huge part, you can only come around one way in order to get up to deal with the enemies here. Sometimes they can snipe at you from above. I'll take that. I do like how you have to be very mindful of when and how to engage enemies and to dodge projectiles, especially if there's bait at the very center in the form of shields and or supplies. These levels seem so much longer when they're extermination. So much more involved. So much more like events. This is interesting because they have the strategically placed spawn points. Which requires you to mindfully dodge and circle around the usual part to deal with enemies. Oh, jeez. jeez. I'd be better off sniping with the Yuge pistols here. Well, they're already dead. Alright, just a few minutes left to go and then nap time. Might as well rocket them all at once. Ha! Haven't gotten crushed much by a platform before. At least outside of my own, of course. In which case it's almost always fatal. Because I'm a jerk with the doors. Is that everyone? Yep. Seriously, any of administrative permission, I'd tell me. I read Hegelian riddles that was late as you. Since maybe that's really think of a dickhead after another window. Just a dickhead after the recording. Cut it there or you out of the internet archive digs nothing out, that luxury. I'm gonna ask Spooky will surprise me. And it made them. Granted, I just swam around when they hadn't heard that anyway. My job done. Yuge has it, and I saw in concept the moms. Since moms pronounce it when I play, I wonder what passwords people there. Maybe dig that thread in the synth section. That's got in the gym. No, but no it did. Yeah, I meant to actually hear a how. Level 41, negative size. So it looks like I've gotten 10 levels done in 2 hours. Of course I'd love it to be faster, but that's still okay, I suppose. Insignificant man. That's a TI-84. I'd be fine. That was decades now, though. And yeah, douche tower, some kind of types. True. But before, I mean, I can change and sing that Hunter's assisting. String of trouble of testing out of exile. Must be alright. I know there's something like Unreal Gold. And Sarah Palin's getting the universe. I'm taking notes, though. It's... Alright, I'm done for the day. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time, with probably more energy and more to talk about.